The mission that should have never happened. The moment I stepped onto the launch pad, I felt something was off. The air was thick with tension, the kind that creeps into your bones when you know something is about to go terribly wrong. But I had no choice. I was already strapped in, the countdown had begun, and millions were watching. This mission was unlike any other. Officially, it was a routine test flight, but behind closed doors, whispers of a secret objective filled the halls of the space agency. Something about an anomaly in deep space, something that had never been explained. I should have asked more questions. I should have walked away. But it was too late. Launch in T-minus 10, 9, 8. I took a deep breath. My hands clenched the armrests, knuckles white. The engines rumbled beneath me, a beast waking from its slumber. This was my third space flight, but nothing could prepare me for the sheer force of liftoff. 3, 2, 1. The world shook. The deafening roar of the engine swallowed every other sound. My body was pressed into the seat as the spacecraft tore through the atmosphere. Flames and smoke filled the screens outside. A monstrous force crushed my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then, silence, weightlessness. I had left Earth behind. But as I reached orbit, something was wrong. My capsule, the Orpheus 11, was supposed to stabilize automatically. Instead, the navigation systems flickered, then shut down entirely. Communications with mission control? Dead. I switched to manual control, heart pounding. Houston, do you copy? Nothing. That's when I saw it. A massive, dark object drifting just beyond the edge of my vision. It wasn't in any official reports. It wasn't space debris. It wasn't a satellite. It was something different. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. My mind raced through possibilities. An abandoned spacecraft? A classified military satellite? But something about it felt wrong. I checked my radar. Nothing. No signal, no registration. It was as if the object didn't exist. And then my entire capsule began to move on its own. A force, something unseen, was pulling me toward the dark object. The capsule's thrusters weren't firing, and my controls were completely unresponsive. Panic set in. I slammed switches, trying to regain manual control, but the capsule kept accelerating toward the unknown. My heart pounded as I realized what was happening. I wasn't piloting the Orpheus 11 anymore. Something else was. The dark mass loomed closer. It wasn't metallic, not like a typical spacecraft. Its surface was shifting, pulsating, as if it were alive. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing I saw before everything went black was a strange, pulsating light emerging from the darkness. And then I was gone, trapped in the void darkness. A suffocating, endless blackness surrounded me. No stars, no Earth, no spacecraft, nothing. Just the heavy, eerie silence of the unknown. I couldn't move. I wasn't strapped into my seat anymore, yet my body refused to obey. My limbs felt weightless, as if I were floating, but I wasn't floating in space. I was suspended in something else. Then the light returned, a dim, pulsating glow, pale blue, shifting like liquid, radiating from the walls around me, except there were no walls, just an endless, shifting mass. It was alive. My breathing quickened. The visor of my helmet fogged up as panic clawed at my throat. I reached for my control panel. Gone. My suit's oxygen levels unchanged. It was as if my body was still functioning normally, but my surroundings defied every law of physics I knew. Then the voices started, not through my headset, not in any language I recognized. They weren't speaking to me, they were speaking through me. echoing, layered, 1,000 whispers overlapping inside my head. You should not be here. A cold shiver ran down my spine. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. Not ready. Not meant to return. Return? Return from where? I tried to move my hands. Slowly, my fingers twitched. My breathing steadied. If I could still move, I could still fight. I forced my head to turn, scanning my surroundings. The blue glow pulsed faster. The whispers grew louder. Then the mass shifted. It wasn't an object, it was a presence. And it was studying me. A part of it peeled away, twisting, bending, forming into something that resembled a face. But it wasn't human. No eyes, no mouth, just an outline of something that had tried to mimic my own shape. You were not chosen. You were not meant to cross. Cross what? My head was spinning. My training had prepared me for space malfunctions, failed missions, even death, but not this. I forced my voice to work. Who are you? Silence. The glowing mass rippled, shifting around me, closing in. I was running out of time. Your world is not ready. Your kind cannot know. Know what? I demanded, my voice hoarse. My pulse was hammering in my ears. The glowing entity hesitated. Then, for the first time, it responded with something other than a whisper. What lies beyond? And then I was falling, not drifting, not floating. Falling. The blue glow vanished, swallowed by the void. The whispers disappeared, replaced by the deafening roar of wind. My stomach lurched. I was plummeting at impossible speed. My suit's alarms blared. Oxygen levels fluctuating wildly. Through my visor, I saw a faint light in the distance, growing, expanding. Earth. I was being sent back. My body twisted violently as I broke through the outer layers of the atmosphere. Heat flared against my suit. My vision blurred. Every nerve in my body screamed as I reached terminal velocity. The shock was instant. Then, silence. I was lying on something solid. The harsh smell of burnt metal filled my lungs. My ears rang. My body ached. I groaned, forcing my eyes open. Above me, the sky was bright blue. Earth's sky. I was back, but something was wrong. Mission Control should have found me. There should have been helicopters, emergency crews, radio chatter. But there was nothing. Just an endless desert stretching for miles in every direction. And in the distance, half buried in the sand, my own spacecraft. But it wasn't wrecked. It wasn't burned up from re-entry. It looked like it had been sitting there for years. The time. Paradox. The air was thick with silence. No wind, no sound. Just the endless desert stretching out before me, and my spacecraft, buried in the sand like a relic of a lost age. My breath came in ragged gasps as I forced myself to move, limbs aching from the brutal re-entry. My mind screamed for logic, for a rational explanation, but there wasn't one. I staggered toward the spacecraft. Every step felt heavier, as if I were walking through something unnatural. The closer I got, the more surreal everything became. The paint on the hull was faded, the metal was rusted. It looked like it had been here for decades, but that was impossible. My mission had launched 2 days ago. I had just been in space. I had just been somewhere else. I reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the surface of the ship. It was real, cold, solid, dead. The insignia of the space program was barely visible, eroded by time and sand. My throat went dry. I turned toward the hatch, pulse hammering. If this was my ship, then inside. I hesitated. I had to know. With a deep breath, I yanked the lever. The hatch groaned, rust flaking off as it finally gave way. A burst of stale air hit me, thick with dust and something else, something rotting. I stepped inside. Darkness. My flashlight flickered to life, casting eerie shadows over the abandoned interior. Cables hung loose from the ceiling, panels were shattered, and the control screens were black with age. And then I saw it. The body, slumped in the pilot's seat, a spacesuit, identical to mine. The helmet was cracked, the visor clouded with decay. My vision blurred, my stomach twisted. I forced my feet forward, step by agonizing step, until I was close enough to see the name tag on the suit. My name, carved into the chest plate. It was me, my own corpse. A scream built in my throat, but I swallowed it down. My mind raced, scrambling for any explanation. Was this an illusion? A hallucination? Had I died here? Had I crashed long ago, left to rot in this forgotten wasteland? No, that didn't make sense. I was here. I was alive. But then, who or what had sent me back? I staggered back, my head pounding. The whispers from the void echoed in my mind. You were not meant to return. Your world is not ready. Then what the hell was this? I turned back toward the hatch, desperate for fresh air, for anything but this nightmare. But as I reached it, my suit's radio crackled to life. Static. Then a voice. My voice. If you're hearing this, then it's already too late. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The corpse in the chair, the rusted ship, the endless silence. I had been here before, and I would be here again. This was a loop, a paradox, a trap, and I had just reset it. The final escape. The words echoed in my helmet, my own voice replaying from the dead radio. If you're hearing this, then it's already too late. I stumbled back, breath shallow, my mind spiraling into chaos. This wasn't possible. This wasn't happening. But it was. I was staring at my own corpse, rotting, forgotten, a version of me that had already lost this fight. And yet I was still here, still breathing. The universe was mocking me. I had to get out. I turned back toward the hatch, my boots crunching against the rusted floor. The loop could be broken. I just had to understand it. There was something I was missing, something that had kept me coming back here. I scanned the cockpit. The ghost of my past self slumped over the controls, the switches, the dials, all dead. Power was long gone. But then I noticed something, a blinking light, faint, dying, but there. I pushed past my own decaying reflection and reached for the black box recorder. My gloved fingers scraped against the metal, dust spilling into the air. I pried it loose, heart hammering. If this thing had survived, it might have the answers. I pressed play. The static roared in my ears, and then a voice, not mine, something else. You should not be here. My stomach clenched. This wasn't a recording of me. You have broken time. You have fractured reality. I swallowed hard, gripping the recorder tighter. Every time you fall, you return. Every time you return, the cycle begins again. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. You are an anomaly. A long pause. Then, in a voice that sent ice through my veins, we are coming to correct the error. The recording cut out. Silence. I stood there, frozen, my mind screaming. Correct the error? I barely had time to react before the ground trembled. A sound, deep and unnatural, filled the air, a hum that made my bones vibrate. The air itself seemed to distort, the walls of the cockpit warping like heat waves. Something was coming, something not human. I bolted out of the wreckage, across the burning sands. The sky above me was wrong, a swirling mass of colors that did not belong in this reality. Then they appeared. Figures, not of flesh and bone, but something else. Shadows carved from the fabric of space itself, towering, watching. You were never meant to return. The voice was inside my skull, vibrating through my very existence. You must be erased. A force slammed into my chest, sending me crashing into the ground. My vision flickered, my body unraveling at the edges like static on a dying screen. I was being deleted. I gasped for air, reaching, grasping, fighting, and then I remembered the paradox. The only way to break it was to do what I had never done before. I stopped fighting. I let go. The world shattered. A blinding light consumed everything, swallowing the sky, the desert, me, and then silence, darkness, a heartbeat, my heartbeat. I opened my eyes. The cold metal walls of a space capsule surrounded me. A control panel flickered to life. The hum of systems booting up filled my ears. I was back, not on Earth, not in the desert, back in space. The mission timer read, T-minus 10 minutes to jump. As if none of it had happened, as if the loop had never begun. I exhaled. Had I really escaped? Or had the cycle just started again?